When Clint Eastwood's dusty pickup truck rolled into the forgotten town of Redstone, no one could have guessed the legendary actor had a plan to change their lives forever. What began as a quiet visit to a roadside diner would soon spark a revival that the world would never forget. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and please complete our 1,000 subscribers for more inspiring stories. The sun dipped low over Carmel by the sea, casting long shadows over the picturesque streets Clint Eastwood once called home. At 94, the legendary actor and director had long stepped away from the spotlight, preferring the quiet life in the town where he had once served as mayor. But tonight, something felt different. Electric. Clint stood outside the Mission Ranch, a beloved local establishment he had saved from demolition decades ago. It wasn't just another evening at the restaurant. A quiet tension hummed in the air as whispers of a controversial town hall meeting filled the streets. Earlier that week, news broke about a proposed high-rise development near Carmel's historic district. The plan had divided the community. Supporters argued it would bring much-needed economic growth, while opponents feared it would destroy the town's unique charm. As rumors swirled about the meeting, escalating into heated confrontations, Clint, now a quiet observer of the town's affairs, felt a pull he hadn't experienced in years. He hadn't planned to attend the meeting until he overheard a group of young locals discussing it during his morning coffee. "They don't care about us," one young woman said, frustration evident in her tone. "They're just here to profit." "Someone needs to say something," another added. Clint's mind drifted back to the countless times he had taken a stand, whether on set, in politics, or in life. There was something about the conversation that stayed with him. By the time the evening rolled around, Clint found himself slipping into his signature boots and heading to the town hall. The small auditorium was packed to the brim when he arrived. Residents filled every seat, with many standing along the walls. The buzz of heated discussions filled the room, but it hushed the moment Clint entered. His towering presence, even in his advanced age, still commanded attention. He took a seat near the back, content to listen. The developers presented their case with polished visuals and rehearsed rhetoric. Opponents fired back with passionate pleas and pointed questions. The debate grew increasingly tense, with raised voices and sharp words. Then a young man, no older than 25, stepped forward. He was nervous, clutching a piece of paper that trembled in his hands. I'm sorry," he stammered. "But this isn't just about money or buildings. It's about identity. Carmel isn't a city. It's a community. My grandparents moved here because it felt like home. If this happens—" His voice cracked, and he looked down, unable to continue. The room fell silent. Clint watched intently, the fire in his eyes flickering back to life. Without thinking, he rose from his seat, his voice cutting through the stillness like the crack of a whip. "Young man," Clint began, his deep, gravelly tone instantly recognizable, "you're not wrong. This town is more than its buildings. It's its people. But the question is, are we willing to work together to protect it?" All heads turned as Clint walked to the front of the room. The developers shifted uncomfortably, clearly unprepared for the legendary figure now standing before them. "This isn't my first fight for Carmel," Clint continued, addressing the crowd. "Years ago, I stood where you're standing now, faced with a similar decision. I fought to save this place not because I had to, but because I believed in it. And I still do. But anger and division won't solve this. We need to hear each other out, not just shout each other down." His words settled over the room like a blanket of calm, quelling the storm of emotions. Clint turned to the developers. "I'm not against progress, but progress doesn't mean destroying what makes this town special. It means finding a way to grow without losing our soul. So here's my challenge to you. Work with us, not against us." The developers exchanged uneasy glances, clearly unsure of how to respond. Clint looked back at the young man, offering a reassuring nod. "This fight isn't just about you, it's about all of us." The room erupted in applause, a thunderous wave of unity that seemed to shake the very walls. Clint stood there for a moment, a quiet satisfaction settling over him. As the meeting adjourned, residents approached Clint, their gratitude evident in their faces. One elderly woman, her eyes brimming with tears, whispered, "Thank you for reminding us who we are." Clint simply nodded, tipping his hat before stepping back into the cool night air. He knew the fight wasn't over, but for the first time in days, the town felt united. The bar felt quieter than usual as Clint Eastwood sat at the weathered counter, a cup of coffee in his hand. Around him, whispers buzzed. The diner had become the center of the town's curiosity ever since Clint's impromptu stop. He had spent the evening engaging in small talk, charming the locals with his dry humor, and taking a genuine interest in their stories. But now, as the first rays of sunlight peeked over the desert hills, the heart of his visit was about to unfold. As the town gathered at the local community center, a modest, sun-bleached building, it became clear something significant was happening. Clint stood near the entrance, his presence magnetic yet unassuming. He greeted people with his signature half-smile, shaking hands and listening intently. He wasn't just a celebrity here. He was a man on a mission. Inside, a large projector screen had been set up, and rows of chairs filled quickly. The buzz of anticipation grew as Clint stepped onto the stage, the floorboards creaking under his boots. He adjusted the microphone, scanning the crowd with a thoughtful expression. "I've spent most of my life telling stories," Clint began, his voice carrying the weight of decades. Stories that entertained, inspired, maybe even made people think. But what good is a story if it doesn't lead to action? The room fell silent, every ear tuned to his words. "This town," he continued, "represents something we've all forgotten. Community. You don't find that much anymore, and it's worth preserving. I'm here because I heard your story. A town struggling to survive, not because you've lost your spirit, but because the world moved on without you." He paused, letting the gravity of his words settle. "I can't stand by and let that happen, so I've got a proposal. Together, we're going to turn this town into something the world can't ignore. We're going to remind people why small towns matter." The audience erupted into applause, some standing, others wiping away tears. Clint's words resonated deeply with a community that had long felt forgotten. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of activity. Clint didn't just fund the renovation of the diner and the gas station. He spearheaded the creation of a film museum dedicated to preserving the legacy of the westerns that had been filmed in the region. His team brought in designers, historians, and even a few of his old Hollywood friends to contribute artifacts and exhibits. But Clint didn't stop there. He organized a festival, The Spirit of the West, a celebration of the genre that had defined much of his career. The event drew filmmakers, actors, and fans from around the world. Streets once empty were now bustling with visitors. The town's population doubled overnight, and local businesses thrived. Clint became a regular presence, overseeing the project, but also sharing meals with the locals, attending town meetings, and ensuring every voice was heard. For him, this wasn't just a project. It was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. On the final day of the festival, Clint stood at the town square, addressing a crowd that had grown tenfold. Behind him, a plaque was unveiled, bearing the town's new slogan, "A place where stories come alive." "This isn't about me," Clint said, his voice filled with emotion. "It's about all of you. You reminded me of something important, that even the smallest places can leave the biggest marks, and for that, I'm grateful." As the crowd roared with applause, Clint stepped back, tipping his hat one last time. The town had been reborn, not just in the eyes of the world, but in its own spirit. That day, the people of the town watched Clint Eastwood drive away into the horizon, but they knew he wasn't just a fleeting visitor. He had become part of their story, just as they had become part of his. Thank you for watching till the end video. I hope you enjoyed the story. If you did, don't hesitate to like the video and share it with your friends too. Subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell for more fascinating stories.